Jackie McLean. Now, Jackie McLean, if you don't know, Jackie McLean is probably the one of the greatest, uh, definitely one of the greatest musicians, but probably the founder or one of the key founding fathers, and we can knock it down to maybe one or two, three people. But we say he's the founder of jazz education. Okay, um, if he didn't teach, I was a student, by the way. Okay, this was like after uh, 4 years of studying with him. I met him when I was a teenager, and he brought me out. Like he brought Tony Williams out. He brought so many great artists into this music. I don't want to. You guys got to go to the Jackie McLean course, and you could see. All right, in that course we build every year, and when it comes around May, we're gonna have a new version. Okay, because that's his birthday month. We do that every May. But just to give you a little history on, so you guys know that. Okay, where am I? I'm in UnitedMusicScience.com. What the hell? Who are these weird people? Well, let me tell you, we come out of Jackie McLean. Okay, directly. So, but who was he, right? Well, there's a lot of information. Just you can go online. But he's the father of jazz education, one of the fathers. But he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to do any of that. He just playing the saxophone was more than enough, and is more than enough, to make him one of the greatest artists of our times, and in the history books forever, for his contributions on the bandstand. He didn't have to get in front of a classroom and teach people like me and Eric McPherson and Nat Reeves and Eli, who's here, Whitney, and all the people in that you'll know. It's thousands of us, okay? It's not just this, but this is special right here, okay? And you'll find out. Okay, so I'm Bap. He nicknamed me Bap. And you say, who's Bap? It stands for Bad Alan Palmer. That's me, Bap. So you guys can call me Bap. And so I'm the founder of the Institute. But before, this is me, and this is my teacher. And okay, so now you know. I hope you know. Do some history. Okay, Charlie Parker used to share a saxophone with Bird. He was taught by Bud Powell. I mean, you can't get closer to this music than the essence of where you are right now, okay? So just relax and enjoy yourself, because one of the most important things that you need to learn as a student of music, period. When I went to school, they didn't have any jazz education. Now you go online, it's everywhere, right? But he was one of the first, on the conservatory level, and did so much. Okay, but we'll talk about that in May. Okay, you guys can get in that course now, and you can get a preview, because it's going to be great when May comes around. But just to give you a quick overview, so you just know you're not sitting there wasting your time with BAP and here, and like what is this Institute, United Institute? Okay, so I was his student, like so many others. So I know jazz curriculum because he put it together, and we've expanded on it because our foundation is strong. Now, why is the foundation strong? So I'm going to give you a couple of quotes from Professor McLean, from Jackie McLean. Okay, so one thing he always told his students, is he taught thousands of students, and a lot of cats, they're my colleagues. Some of them I taught. Cats older than me. So he taught many. I don't know if any of them listened to him, but I sure did. I listened to everything, watched everything. I listened to him like crazy, okay? And that's how I ended up on his bandstand. But before that, I was his student, right? So one of the first things he told me, he said, I'm going to give you some secrets now, okay? And as piano players, you can write this down. You're going to get your piano playing concept from Bud and Monk. Now you say, oh, why Bud and Monk? Why those two guys? Because you can start there, and you can go forwards, and you can go backwards in the history. And we can talk about that in my piano class. And another thing that's important for you, us jazz students, and us students of music, is that how are you going to know what's new until you know what's old? You know, everybody today, they talk about the music industry, and they always got some new hype thing that they selling everybody, some new, and it's supposed to be new, right? You guys don't know what's new because you don't know the history. You don't know what's old. And so it's very important for musicians to have a strong foundation in the history. Okay? So I really, really listened to this man, okay? Because I became his assistant right away in history. Before I got in this picture, I was just like you guys, learning this music, learning the history, and learning this. Okay, so those are some of the things he told me. And so your concept is going to come from knowing the history. Okay, knowing the history of music. Okay, so Jackie McLean, I don't know what they're doing up there. They, at these schools right now, but he always says that he said, and also another thing, is that the history is the backbone of the whole curriculum. And just think about that for a minute. And before we get into the history, because I'm not going to start you guys in New Orleans, okay? Like music started in New Orleans, right? That's what they teach in the jazz books. Like you look in a lot of these shallow schools or so-called jazz education. It's great. It's everywhere. But it's important that you guys are here because you're going to know the real deal, okay? And you'll be able to share it, right? Because jazz is just a label. What does it mean? You guys can type in the chat, but don't get offended because you don't know the real meaning, or there is no real meaning to that word. It's a slang word that meant something else, and they slapped it on this music. It meant sexual intercourse in New Orleans or in the speakeasy. And they say this music comes from the speakeasy, it comes from the whorehouses. No, it doesn't. Maybe the industry does. Maybe you could make an argument for the American music industry. We could talk about that too. Okay, that's a topic too. But we're going to talk about the music, right? That's what we're here for. We want to learn how to, because if Jackie McLean, like I said, he didn't have to teach us. He could have just played his saxophone like all the greats that went before, like Charlie Parker. Like I said, he shared his horn with Bird and Bud and all these greats. And that would have been enough, right? Now, your concept is going to be strong when you know what happened before, okay? Now, it's impossible for us, even in They Came Before Hip Hop, even if you're going to get the full version, you got to stick around the end. It's not, it doesn't cover everything. So, it's a concept, and we're going to keep adding content to the history. And I'm going to bring in some special guests, hopefully this year, okay? Because this course, like I said, the full version it's not just, okay, it's going to be all the modules. There's a lot of modules there, but actually it's a course. Our courses evolve, as you're going to notice in the Institute. They continue, all right? So stick around, and it's, like I said, it's a lifelong journey, but it's going to strengthen your concept. It's like a flashlight. The history is like a flashlight. If the more you can look back, the more you can see everything going around presently, and you'll see what everyone else is playing, and you'll see where it came from, and then you'll know exactly what to do, and your concept is going to be very, very strong on the bandstand. Plus, you'll be a better person. You'll be a better person because, it makes it's not a, what point of is it for you to be the greatest musician or the richest musician or the wealthiest musician or whatever you want to be? What's the point of that shit if you're not a good person? Now, let's go back to the beginnings, okay, of music history. Now, where did music come from? Where does music come from, you guys? Where does music come from? That's an interesting question, right? You say, where does sound come from? What is music, right? Well, sound is everywhere. But music, like who were the first musicians, right? Was it human beings? Well, you haven't listened to nature, the birds, and nature. Music is everywhere, and you could say that we as humans, okay, we can manipulate music. We can do all these things with music. We can make millions of dollars. We can create a music industry. You can do all these things with music, but it's a spiritual thing. Those are not, so you're going to find out all of the origins of music and humanity, okay? Because we cannot start in America. We cannot start in New Orleans. We can't start really anywhere except for where the scientists start, where humanity started, right? So the only place that we start when we start looking at music, and especially now, you guys, I got to give you a misnomer. This is Black History Month, you guys. Okay, so you guys that are, this is a Black Music History course. Just delete that shit. Okay, music has no color. We do this every Black History Month, but as you're gonna find out, there's only one race of people, and we all come from a common ancestor in Africa. Now, this is what the scientists have proven. Now, I'm just using this map right now, just so you can see if you've never seen where Africa is. Okay, so you look on your map, and so they found the earliest of humanity in Africa. Now, you guys can go into the course and we go into a lot of the details, but what I want you to understand is that all of the concepts in music, whether it's humanity came from Africa and we went everywhere, okay? But all the concepts in music, they have a commonality, okay? And we're gonna point these out, and I'm going to show you so that you can just grab the general concept of traditional African music, and then you can find these concepts, these ancient concepts, in everywhere you look. Everywhere you look, okay? Everywhere, in every culture, you're going to find it, okay? So we're going to talk about, we got to go back to the beginning of humanity, right? So just using music, you could say, all people have sound in common with their beliefs. Okay, I don't want to go into that lecture, but this gets into music metaphysics. Now, when we talk about music, it's the same. It's B flat, whether you're here or you're anywhere. You didn't invent it, right? But we organizing it now. We're going to organize this, and then we have melody, harmony, and rhythm. That's in all music, wherever you are. It all can be broken into down to these mathematics and the beliefs. Okay? So you guys that are musicians, you have this industry thing, which is commercial, and so they create these labels like, you got hip hop and jazz and the blues and that's a hustle. That's hustling music. All right, but you have to separate the difference. This is music has these common things. All right, but they make these different labels of music, right? And we're just gonna look. We're gonna focus. I'm gonna take you backwards and take you forwards, you guys. Okay, and I'm improvising right now. Okay, just let you know, I got my slides and we're just shooting from the hip. So let's enjoy. Okay, so this is a African American music tree. You could call it that, or American music tree. We're gonna get away from these labels because we have to get away from these labels, man. Like modern, free jazz, modal. They're like teams. And we have to get away from these labels as artists for our art to grow. And for this tree to grow, because it all comes from the roots, okay? And we're going to talk about these roots because these roots grow deep and they belong to you. If you say, if you believe the history of music, like in these books and shit, you're gonna be all screwed up. Okay. So you got to understand the foundations. Okay. All right. So this is just I can't even put everybody in here, right? But just know this is endless. This tree is constantly growing, right? And so what do you have in the tree? You got the roots of the tree. You can't see them, but they're most important because they go as deep as it's going to grow, because this is your foundation. Okay. So now the science has proven that we're all commonality. There's only one race. We changed over the many. This planet is old, you guys. As long as we keep digging, we're gonna be like, damn, there's another civilization. So as far as we know, we have the science has proven we come from a common mother that lived in Africa, and that's everybody's mom, and we've grown into this wonderful tree. So if you limit yourself to say, I'm this, I'm hip hop, or I'm funk, I'm rock and roll, or I'm country and blues, right? You're putting a hole in your concept, and you're like a branch. You're just, what is that? You're not gonna be able to grow, and when that branch fruit, we wanted the whole tree, you guys. Okay, so that's what our history concept is about. That's why we stress the history. That's why Jackie McLean and all of the great teachers of music stress the history. Okay, it's a big deal if you were Liszt students or you were Beethoven student back in the day. If you were, that's in Africa, we're gonna find out the same tradition exists. It's not like, hey, they just doing. No, studying traditional African music is a vast study. All right, that's a whole nother course, a whole volume of courses that we're gonna try to tackle. Okay, and one day. Okay, you guys, but there's some commonalities. Okay, there's some commonalities in all American music and all you could say traditional African music. And if you dig deep enough, and if you really know, and you're not like walking around like this, and you got your jersey on, like representing your team, right? Then you realize that you're gonna find these commonalities in all of music. Okay. So you guys that know, we can type these, because this is gonna be part of the raffle. Okay. So these commonalities. This is just an analogy of the tree, but these commonalities between all of music, right? All of music. You can really kind of break it down. Okay, so we're gonna take you back to music and antiquity. All right, so there's 4, you could say, common characteristics. They're 4. There's just 4. So how's it more? Well, that's 4. Okay, 4 that we can identify that are common in all African music, in antiquity. So you're gonna find the roots of this in all music on the planet. Okay, so you can have your different definitions and stuff. You guys want to get anal? I don't want to. Just relax. Okay, polyphony. What does that mean? It's like freaking harmony, more than one note. It's also can mean counterpoint. Okay, it's when you have more than one melody going on the same, it creates polyphony. It creates harmony. Anytime you have more than one person participating in music, you're gonna have polyphony. That's just a fancy word for just more than one cat and doing different lines in music. Okay, and you got polyrhythm. What is polyrhythm really? They say, oh, it's polyrhythm. That's something exclusive jazz shit. No, it's not. Polyrhythm is just one rhythm, like one cat, and another person playing together. It's polyrhythm. More than one rhythm. You have your heartbeat. The minute you play with somebody else, you're doing polyrhythms. Whether you're doing actual polyrhythms, like you want to be a drummer, okay, we're playing 5/4, playing 6/8, playing 3/4. The minute you play with somebody else, unison, you have your own heartbeat. I have my own heartbeat. That's polyrhythm because we have our own rhythms, and it's happening at the same time, and it's got to lock in. But it's different rhythms. Okay, that's polyrhythm, and then you got antiphony. What is antiphony? Antiphony is basically call and response. They say, "Oh, that's only in the black church." Like they say, "Amen." They do the sermon, say, "Amen." No, it's not. It's everywhere. The birds do call and response. Every communication is a call and a response. If you call me on the phone, I can either respond by answering the phone, or I can respond by not answering the phone. That's a response too. So everything in nature is like a call and response. And everything in music has a call and response. Oh, syncopation, that's got James Brown, that's on the upbeat. Oh, that's only on the upbeat. No, not necessarily. Okay, that's making it exclusive. Syncopation is just like I said, it's more than one rhythm. Okay, syncopation is on the upbeat, but you're gonna inevitably have that when you have more than one person playing. You're gonna have some syncopation, now whether you dig it. And see, the thing is about all of this has to resolve. Okay, all of this has to resolve. You know, syncopation to you, you say, oh, that's, you know, that's an exclusive black thing. No, it's just because they put this fancy label on it, because it's just putting the accent on a different beat. If I put the accent on the fifth beat and we're 9/4, is that syncopation? You know? So what I'm trying to show you guys, and I hope you get the big picture of this, because I'm not going to go through, we don't have time. Okay, but you can trace this in all music. These 4 common characteristics, especially directly from the music that was made in antiquity in Africa and the music that comes out of America today. All of it. All of it. Okay, you guys? All right, so that's the first part, you guys. You don't have to take any notes, but just know that there are just 4 common characteristics, right? Now, you say like, what else do they have in common? Well, they also have, you know, they like to divide music up into, like I said, all these different labels and this and that and teams, and they divide races up into black people, white people, and then they divide the religions up, and then they subdivide, and everybody's fighting at each other's throats. And music wasn't created for that. Okay, sound is to bring music brings people together. So if you're a musician, you're really not just an entertainer. That's the whole point of this history course, you guys. Because how are you going to look at jazz music seriously, or Jelly Roll Morton, or the history of Charlie Parker, or the history of anything, unless you can get this basic stuff together? Because if you're still walking around like these dinosaurs, that classical music is separate, Mozart improvised, Beethoven improvised, we're talking about improvisation. Music is always changing, like life, okay? So if you're gonna be a dinosaur, then you're not getting this, okay? But maybe there's a blockage, but don't worry about it, okay? You wanna just get out of that old mindsets, okay? And you're gonna play your ass off. It's like magic, you guys. Okay, you don't never want to limit yourself in music. Okie dokie. All right. Okay. All right. That's like saying, okay, the limit. Like you say, oh, bird playing B flat. How are you going to talk to the bird and say playing B flat? You know, how do you understand the innovations of music? Like Art Tatum, was he playing jazz? They come along later and with these labels, and then they say, okay, now we're gonna. That's commercialism. That's industry, that's putting on a jersey representing a team, that's more divisions, subdivisions. There's only 3 real, you could say these are divisions in music, okay? Now what do they mean? Well, you know what secular means and non-secular, okay? And then the esoteric music, right? So, you know, you have music for religion or for worship. They say, oh, why you want to worship? Well, sound, all, like I said, all the creation stories and all the people of all the faiths, they have sound in common. So music is always used in worship, right? And then you have everyday music. Everyday music. What is everyday music? That's everything else, right? Now you can make an argument to say, like, are they united? Like, can this be three in one? I would argue yes. To a great musician, to a master musician, this is three in one. But just to sort of the class right now, just so you can kind of get through the bullshit of like rock and roll and jazz and all that stuff and get through all that. There's only three you can find. You say, okay, music that's for ceremonies. Now, when you say, like, I don't want to say use the word like religion, okay, because that's limiting. You say, okay, spirituality, or you can even say ceremonial music. That goes back to the ancient times. In Africa, we did music for everything. It's at the center of culture. Like, if music is at the center of culture, of African culture in the ancient times and still today, you go anywhere in the black community, music is at the center of that culture. Whether we understand it or we really respect it, or whether we understand the history of it, right, and its value or not, consciously or subconsciously, it's always going to be at the center of the culture, right? So now, if that's like that way in ancient times, right? So music is told to tell stories. A lot of the ancient stories were through songs. You had the griot, the tradition of the griot, where they tell stories, and it's in music, right? So they say, oh, well, hip hop's new. No, it's not. None of that shit is new. You guys are looking at, you're listening to, and they create these things, right? So we got to, if you're going to be a master musician, you got to understand these three divisions, but then you got to make them into they're really one. What's esoteric? Esoteric is kind of like what you're doing right now, because this is not mainstream jazz education. You're not going to, this is not yet, or secret music from secret societies, or music that just wasn't for the common people, right? And they have that too. That's always existed, even up till today, okay? Right? Any music, like you say, oh, I'm going to hip you to John Coltrane, it's esoteric for you until you get hip to it, and then you're like, oh, wow, I'm in this new musical club where it's like a whole new way of, you listen to it, it creates another consciousness. It's always existed. All right, but it's three in one, you guys. Okay, all right. So that's something that if you just understand these basic concepts, then we can get past all of the blockages that's going to keep us from playing. You see, our whole point is that we want to be the greatest musician, right? And to be the greatest musician, like I said, you gotta, how strong are you? How strong are your roots? Because you are a tree, and you gotta branch out with your art. And the tree, just think a tree is like a musician, man. I mean, the trees give so much to this planet, and we just chop them and use them for paper, and then just, oh man, we need the land, we'll just chop them down, who cares? It's like musicians, man. So we care, and you got to care about your tree. You have to care about your body. We have to care about our spirit, and we have to care about our spirit, really, because this gets into this. Trust me, you guys. Okay, like I said, you say, okay, a lot of cats, they learn how to play the notes, but they still can't play shit. You can learn all the music in the world, music theory. When it comes to improvising and playing and really contributing, you have to, the stronger you are in all music with your ancestors. Now, I just made it clear to you that we have one ancestor. Okay, so get out of what they teach everywhere else. Okay? Right? Like I said, is this jazz history? No. Like I said, I just do this, and I put black music history, whatever, some commercial shit we do, and it's new because we do this during Black History Month. And I don't know how many people logged in, but I want to thank you guys, and I want to thank you guys very much because you guys are way ahead of the curve. You guys here are going to be strong trees. You're going to be strong trees. So when the wind blows and they come with the axe, and you might lose a branch, but you're going to grow it back. You'll be indestructible tree, you dig? Because your concept and your roots are in this tree. Even if they cut the tree, you're gonna come back. Just like this music always comes back, you guys. And if anything, without going into a lot of heavy, deep diving into the history, like I said, that's gonna be a whole. You guys are gonna be enrolled in They Came Before Hip Hop, which is, I think, is a good introduction into music history. But like I said, this is a very important part of the institute that we're developing. We have some of our affiliate teaching artists are teaching traditional, like what's happening in West African music happening today, and we're touching all of the music, you guys, because like I said, there are no labels no more, okay? And if you can just understand that this music is yours, belongs to you. So you got to claim everything. You got to claim the history. Hopefully one day we won't call this music anything but music. And then like Duke Ellington said, there's only two types. You got good and bad, right? So what's the point of being a good musician and a bad person? They don't go together. They don't go together, okay? So that's very important, you guys. So strengthen your roots, and you're gonna be the greatest musician.